Welcome back to Knowledge Resources Speaker Feature, where we sit down with a presenter for one of our upcoming conferences. Today, we're sitting down with Andy Uren, who will be presenting at the upcoming Organizational Development Conference on the 23rd and 24th of February this year. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your current role?
Thank you so much, Amy, and great to be here with everyone. So I work for Nedbank. I am the Executive Head of Organizational Effectiveness, and my portfolio includes organization design and development, of which employee insights is a fundamental and really exciting component. I'm actually a research psychologist by profession, and the employee insights work that we are doing at the moment has challenged me to take all of that research background and turn it into good use and find a way to actually make it practical, implementable, and to give us the kind of insights we need to go forward at Nedbank.
Sure, and you'll be taking those insights to your presentation, I believe. Could you give us a little bit of an overview of the case study you're doing and just what you'll be addressing at the conference?
Absolutely. So Nedbank has been on an employee insights journey for a couple of years now. And we started with a strategy that I think was a little bit outdated. We used to do our Barrett survey every second year, and in between, on every other year, we would do a Compass survey, which was a very long and detailed survey around employee engagement. And we have faced a very difficult journey, not in terms of changing the tools, but in terms of changing the mindsets of people at Nedbank around surveys, their use and their frequency. So we know that what we want to do is create a platform where the voice of the employee can be heard on numerous occasions, and we can take those insights and use them to inform our strategy, to understand whether what we're doing is working, to understand the sentiment of the workforce. And if we do that once a year and once every 2 years with the Compass survey, really it's not sufficient. It doesn't meet the needs. But at the same time, the mindset is that a survey is a huge piece of work, and it takes a huge amount of capacity and time. And even once it's finished, it becomes even more of a challenge, because then you have to do action planning, and then you have to put these action plans into place, and you have to make sure that you actually do what you say you were going to do and take time and feedback. So there's this mental mindset that a survey is a huge once-off piece of work that we do every so often. Now, to shift the mindset of the business to an employee survey is a conversation, it's a dialogue. It's just talking to your staff using a different platform. And wouldn't you want to talk to your staff more than once a year? So how do we shift that mindset so this becomes a continued dialogue across the business? So I'm going to share some insights on how we manage to do that. I'm going to talk a bit about the tech enablement journey, without which it is impossible to move from annual surveys to more regular pulse surveys. I'm going to talk to you about the learnings that we have faced in coming up with questions, because there's been a huge body of literature for many years on employee engagement. And that body of literature talks about the drivers of engagement. And we have a lot of analysis around what constitutes engagement. We've looked at this for some time, and eventually we started to say, actually, why don't we allow the employees to tell us what's top of mind, instead of us telling the employees what's top of mind for us? And when I say us, I mean HR, to be clear, not even the business. So it's a complete about face in terms of what we measure, how we measure, why we measure, and the use of artificial intelligence and natural language processing to get us to a point where those insights are available real time. Now, it's an exciting area, not only because we've totally changed the approach, but also because we've had some very big learnings. So at the moment, we do 3 pulse surveys a year. I'm going to be discussing, well, is 3 a good number? Why not 2? Should we go to 4? We think we found some of the answers to that, and I think you'll be very interested to hear what those answers are now that we have over a year's worth of data to show which questions and which measures and metrics remain stable and which ones tend to move. So that's a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about.
That sounds so incredibly interesting and insightful. Can't wait to hear more about it. I would like to ask you a little bit about the logistics of using the data afterwards. That just sounds like such a challenge to me, and I'd love to hear how you approach it.
Absolutely. So employee insights is a cornerstone in my mind of culture and of how you shift your culture. So we've done a lot of work on how to change culture. And you know, there's a number of different ways you can do that. But overall, your culture is a reflection of the people. It's a reflection of the relationships between people. And if we want our culture to shift, we have to focus on the voice of the single employee as well as the voice of the collective. And interestingly, you know, you can go through thousands and thousands of different verbatim comments, and you'll look for themes and you'll look for what is common and similar, and you'll find the vast majority of the insights you draw, regardless of how different we think we are, they are universal trends that emerge. But never lose sight of the fact that it could be one or two people who make a comment that fundamentally challenge the way you think. So it's not all about making sure that you have themes and that you have the collective voice. It's also about giving individuals an opportunity to speak, because often the deepest and most interesting insights lie with individuals, not a collective voice. So we use these employee insights and we do a huge amount of analysis. I personally enjoy reading the comments. I try and make sure to read as many of the comments as possible for every survey, because it just gives you such a good sense, not only of what people are thinking, but what they're feeling. And I think from a workforce experience perspective, that's what you need to tap into. You need to tap into what are people feeling when they walk into the building, when they log on from home. What would make their world a better place, their experience sleeker, quicker, easier to use at Nedbank? Those are the kind of things that you want to wrap your head around, because that's then what starts to shift the culture. And until you do that, people are going to remain focused on the big issues, which sound good and have lots of big concepts and terminology, but they're very hard to unpack until you say to someone, tell me more. How does that make you feel? And why? And how would you change it? And once you get to those insights, that's when you start to shift culture. So it's definitely a collection of individual and collective insights that creates your diversity. And working with that, you can then work towards inclusion.
You've mentioned that this is a massive project, and certainly with all these diverse viewpoints, I can see that. How do you get the employee to buy into the process? I think we get about 2 or 3 surveys a day. How do you get them to invest into your survey and really partake into the research that you're doing for the company?
That's an excellent question. And we've used many tactics, and a lot of them have been creative tactics. So little videos that go viral, using a bit of humor, using something punchy. But I think more than that, we have taken the surveys and we have reshaped them. We have made them short. We have made them interesting. We've made them in some places a little bit quirky. And more importantly, we turn around those results in 48 hours. So nothing is more off-putting than doing a survey, being asked really interesting questions, and then having to wait 3 months for the answers. So what we do is we do the surveys, we just about kill ourselves to do all the analysis. And 48 hours later, we have a live dashboard with live results that we send out to the organization to say, this is what you told us. And that very quick feedback loop seems to make people want to participate because they're interested to see what other people think, what other people say. So I think it's about the survey itself. It's about the comms and change approach. And then it's also about how quickly you can get those results to people. And of course, whether or not you take any action. If you ask people the same questions, doesn't matter how many times you ask them, and people respond and they share with you and you do nothing about it, well, there'll be no point in responding and you'll see your response rate start to decline. We've kept our response rates pretty stable. And I think that that's been a big win for us. But I think there's still a lot more we can do in this area.
That's an incredibly quick turnover time. I can only imagine that the resources you have available to you at Nedbank is a huge help in that and an aid in that. But just drawing from your almost 12 years of experience now, what advice could you give to smaller firms who really want to connect with their employees and gain those insights, but perhaps don't have the capacity to have this large survey and have results within 48 hours?
So that's the interesting part. We don't have a huge amount of help, and we don't have a very huge function either. We turn this around on a dime. We have a small number of people who work in this area. So the key is tech enablement. And with some of the new platforms that are available today, literally you could close your survey and have those results like 3 minutes later. You would build your dashboard and you would be able to see what is going on. So you don't need to have a huge number of people if you have the right enablement tools, which admittedly, if you're a small business, are expensive. So you have to find that cost efficacy sort of, what makes sense from a cost perspective, but it certainly doesn't take huge teams and massive manpower to get this done. I think what it takes is technology, and more importantly, the will and the want and the passion and the desire to do it. That's what drives us.
Sure. It's amazing to hear about the opportunities that are available to us now. And I'm sure we'll be hearing about many other tips and tricks like these technology platforms that we can use in the Organizational Development Conference. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed your insights, and I'm looking forward to hearing you speak at the conference.
Thank you so much, Amy. I look forward to seeing you there. Lots to share, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you.